So my name is Mariam. I'm from Afghanistan. I also lived in Pakistan as a refugee from the Taliban. I wore hijab, what some people call a headscarf, for about 19 years. This was not a choice. It was enforced on me, not by my family, but by the community that I lived in, the schools that I attended, and some places that I worked in. When I questioned why I had to cover, they said it's a physical protection from men. I hated wearing hijab. I felt imprisoned by it. In 2014, I moved to the US. I took off my hijab, and for the first time that I walked down the street, hiked and climbed mountains without the headscarf, I really felt free. But in the Afghan community, both in Afghanistan and in the US, I was told I was a bad woman. I was told I was shaming my family. Then I found out about this trend. A World Hijab Day is a day celebrated by feminists, women's rights advocates, and progressive liberals throughout the Western world in an attempt to cast hijab as something that's empowering and representative of freedom and choice. Brands like Dolce & Gabbana and Tommy Hilfiger are seen trying to fetishize, romanticize, and normalize hijab. Nike introduced hijab sportswear, and there are hijab-wearing Barbies for children. Alicia Keys romanticized the hijab under the banner of diversity. Huffington Post launched a hashtag photo campaign, Hijab to Me, featuring women wearing hijabs, ironically, as an expression of their individuality. One of the most well-known and prominently cited posters from this year's Women's March in Washington, D.C. featured a woman wearing a star-spangled hijab. I find this trend deeply concerning. I believe it's time for an honest assessment as a community, as a culture, as to what hijab stands for. To me, it represents a pious purity culture, one in which women must cover themselves so as not to incite passion among men. In many Muslim-majority countries, this ideology limits women's access to education, work, and healthcare, and silences women's voices and presence in public society. Women are dying in Afghanistan because their families will not allow them to be treated by a male doctor. In my hometown, Kabul, women are not allowed to go to university because in the university, girls and boys study together. In Sudan in 2015, 9 women were whipped severely for wearing pants. In Saudi Arabia, a woman was arrested after tweeting a photo of her without hijab. In Iran, you can go to jail for showing the smallest bit of hair while wearing your hijab. The very first thing ISIS does upon capturing a woman is to place her in hijab. Most women living in Islamic countries hate hijab. They wear it not as a choice, but as an obligation, knowing if they don't meet this obligation, they will face increased sexual violence at home, threats from the community and ISIS, and potential arrest. These women are not empowered by the hijab, they're imprisoned by it. Some will use a saying of Muhammad that says women who don't cover themselves will burn in hell, or women without headscarves are like candies thrown on a dirty floor to attract flies, or brainwashing like this to make women cover. In the US, I have met many Muslim women who wear headscarves, and when you ask these women if they like wearing the hijab, they say, oh yeah, I love it. But when you talk to them in private, they say they're often forced to wear them. They have no other choice than saying, I like wearing hijab. And if they choose not to cover, they face physical and psychological sanctions from their families and communities. Ironically, Muslim women of privilege living in the US run hijab-friendly fashion blogs, magazines, and businesses, and are defending the hijab as a choice and liberating in a backward attempt to reclaim the hijab. These women are minimizing and erasing injustices to other Muslim women in less privileged circumstances. I support their choice to wear headscarves. However, when free women living in secular countries try to normalize hijab and celebrate it as freedom, they're actually perpetuating the ideology of political Islam, dictating that women must cover themselves to avoid unwanted attention from men. What I think is most important to understand is that standing with your Muslim sisters does not mean standing with hijab. Hijab does not stand for freedom or individuality or power. Hijab stands for oppression, control, and sublimation. Instead of celebrating an oppressive practice like hijab, I challenge you to instead work to promote and advocate Muslim women's equality across the globe. Work to promote equal access to education, work, and healthcare. work to promote equal inheritance, legal rights, and the ability to become leaders, not just for Muslim women, but for all women around the world. Thank you.